Hello everyone, today we will talk about factors for site selection. The approach will be to look at all the factors from an operational point of view. Basically, this step is finalizing a location for constructing, expanding or acquiring any physical entity of the firm. It can be a warehouse, it can be an office, it can be a production facility, retail outlet or franchisee, anything. And all this will represent a physical node in a supply chain. So this is a major point to know that this site selection is valid for anything which is having a physical node in a value chain. This site selection is a crucial factor in delivering the goods and services in an effective manner to the market. The site can be a new place, it can be an existing facility where expansion can be carried out, it can be within the same country or it can be on the opposite side of globe. The final decision lies basically on the revenue generated by the site and the cost of running the facility. Here we will also see about how few site selection it presents more risk, fewer or lesser risk, such as office space. It will be very easier to decide, but when you think about a manufacturing facility, it will be more capital intensive and it will require taking into account the local environment law, labor law and many more factors. Due to these complexities and risk presented by this step, it can take months to finalize a site for an organization. You can see how Kasra Fardos in a Harvard Business Review, it's a very interesting paper. I'm just taking the example of paper, how she has classified offshore factories into 6 different categories, where on the y-axis this is site competence and on the x-axis we have strategic reason for the site. Here what we can see is site competencies goes from high to low, and on the strategic reason there are 3 strategic reason. First is access to low cost production, then second is access to skill and knowledge, and last is proximity to market. First is offshore factories. They are designed for specific products at very low cost and targeted for exports. Little to no development or engineering is done in this facility. Then we have source factory. Source factory, this is also aimed at large scale low cost production but has greater control over procurement, production planning, process planning and designing decisions. Next is our server factory. Server factory aims at taking advantage of locations such as terrific waiver, reduced logistics, reduced taxes, reduced exposure to fluctuating currency, and generally serves a specific target nation or a regional market. Then we have a contributor factory. Contributor factory is the same as a server factory with added responsibility of product design, process engineering and supplier selection, etc. Then we have outpost factory. The outpost factory is located in a region where its primary role is to gather intelligence, market data and other business related information which can be used strategically by its firm. It is located near its competitor, R&D centers and customer. It also undertakes production, as you can see on this scale. It also undertakes but only to justify its existence. Then finally, we have the lead factory. Lead factory is also sometimes known as a mother factory, flagship factory. It creates processes, products and technology for the entire company. It also undertakes most of the development and design works. The operation management here plays a crucial role in directing the whole supply chain of the company. Now coming to the factor, first factor is staffing. So in staffing, it includes all type of personnel such as contract, full-time trainee, direct, indirect management, etc. for running the facility. First is labor cost. Direct wages are one of the most important criteria when performing a site selection. This is why we see companies based out of USA, Japan and other developed economies having production facilities in developing countries where the wages are significantly lower. The higher wages will result in higher final cost of the goods and services delivered. Thus, every firm tries to keep costs down. Then we have social charges. These are the additional charges which are indirectly related to welfare such as medical insurance, social security, paid vacations, retirement benefit, unemployment benefit, etc. Then we have social laws. This factor affects the cost in indirect ways such as working hour limitation, overtime, work week hiring and termination laws. Next, we have availability of skilled laborers. Availability of trainable and unemployed labor plays a major part in the site selection as based on demand and supply rule. The higher the availability of unemployed labor, the lower will be the staffing related cost generally. Next is productivity. The pool of talent available in that country or region is how much productive, and this is a major decision variable in the site selection. You can learn more about how to calculate productivity in our blog and the link will be in the description. Then we have trade union. Strong trade unions are a big deterrent for any firm to relocate in that region. Unions also lead to industrial action strikes which result in lost productive days, leading to missed deliveries for customer and services. Next is education level. The education level of the demography plays a crucial role as nowadays the jobs are becoming more technological intensive. The existence of training institutes, colleges, and other trade-related institutions help to establish a constant supply of fresh talent which can perform the task effectively. Next, we have labor mix. It states the mandatory local regulation that allows a mix of expatriate and local labor for operations, construction, management of the factory, management of the plant, such as how much percentage of expats you can have at a certain factory, certain kind of operations, such as in Jordan you have to have 75% expatriate and 25% local. You cannot have more expatriate than 75%. The next is inherent local conditions. Local conditions such as climate, language, culture, they play a very important role in site selection. It impacts the operations in very long run. First is climate. Good and constant weather conditions are favorable for operations. Moderate areas are always preferred in order to avoid the excess cost that will be required for heating, cooling, humidification, dehumidification, or other activities. Next is culture. The culture of the land can be sometimes difficult for expatriate employees to adapt, thus resulting in higher salaries. Next is ethics. Companies tend to avoid location where their ethical principles are not matching, such as many companies exit Russia after the invasion of Ukraine on ethical and moral grounds. Next is language. Companies prefer to extend operational bases in a place with the same language as either primary or secondary. It helps in easy communication across the supply chain. Next major point is infrastructure. Infrastructure includes physical facilities put in place by the region, the law enacted by the government, or the business environment that has evolved or perhaps declined through the years as a result of country's management. In this, we have family services such as housing, school, universities, shop, medical services. These are the elements which attracts personnel. Next, we have communication such as internet facilities, how reliable it is, do they have satellite connectivity, what is average speed in the region. Next is environmental regulation, which is a really important factor. It covers local, regional, and national rule for air, water, land, and noise pollution. Next is legal framework. Litigation laws vary enormously from country to country, such as US has probably the severest liability laws and damages claim for the infringement, such as faulty products, faulty operation, environmental spills, and it can likely run into millions of dollars. In addition, in the USA, companies are required to have in place affirmative action programs whose objective is to stress the hiring and promotion of minority and disadvantaged individuals. Next is transportation. It covers the transportation facilities and network for raw material, finished goods, and also personnel. A good rail service, road service are very important for the delivery of raw material and then dispatching the finished goods. The transportation cost can add significantly to the cost of goods which is produced in the country or the services which is produced in the country. Next, we have rental costs. Companies not always buy the services or the infrastructure that they use, such as land, building, or cleaning services. So in the country, what is the rental cost? It impacts a lot on the bottom line and the operational costs. Next, we have living cost. Living cost, it covers all the expenses for the employee living in that area. Regions having high living cost may make it difficult to recruit the appropriate personnel because prospective employees find it prohibitive to relocate. So they will simply not come. But nowadays, with work from home, the living cost is not that important factor. And sometimes the companies are responsible for paying the living cost and it is added as a burden on the corporation. Next, we have the country stability. This is one of the major factors, such as any company will not want to go into countries like Syria, Yemen, where the stability is not there in the country where war is going on. There are so many factors which are considered for country stability, such as threat of civil strike, are the locals distrustful of foreign companies. Next is construction. Before any plant can be operational, it has to be built. And construction are very capital intensive work and it can highly reduce the chance of success for the organization. It's a make and break point. This is one of the major factors which companies consider during site selection. But sometimes tax incentive by the regional or national government, it may help to make the land cost cheaper. Such as Disney Corporation, it received a lot of tax incentive for the land in France where it was constructed. Next is construction labor. Sometimes you will have the human resources to operate the facility, but first it has to be constructed and that specific skill set, the construction laborers are not available in the country. Such as Qatar, for hosting the World Cup, they relied completely on migrant labor from across the world. Next is the land preparation. Land preparation, it covers the work necessary to prepare the land for facility construction, such as if any industrial park is already made by the government, it's available for you to relocate. It's easier because the land has already been prepared, the access roads are prepared, the related infrastructure, the land survey has been done, the quality of soil testing has been done already. Then we have future expansion possibilities. After a company has built a new facility, there may be need for expansion. Therefore, when we are doing a site selection, we have to consider that whether expansion can be done or not. Next, we have zoning regulation. This covers the law regarding the construction in a particular area. In most countries, an area has to be designated as an industrial zone before a plant can be constructed. Next is environmental regulation. The environmental regulation would cover the construction phase, only the construction phase. Then the operation phase, once the plant is running, it goes into the regulation part. Next is material availability. Construction materials such as cement, fireboard, wood, and construction steel, is it available in the country or it has to be imported? First is fluctuating exchange rate. Currency stability is very important in selecting a site for any operating company. If the value of the currency goes down, then the export will rise always. But at the same time, this is not always a good factor, because when you are mostly import based economy, so the cost of the imports will go up. But this is not good in all the scenario, because when the currency goes down, then your import bills goes up, and if you are a import dependent country, then your inflation will increase. Next, we have repatriation of funds. Repatriation of fund, it concerns the ability of parent company to repatriate the funds to the country where headquarters are located. Some countries, particularly in emerging economies, have strict exchange control, so that transfer is not easy. Then we have taxes and operations. Countries levy taxes on companies that do business in their territory. Taxes paid will diminish the net return of the corporation. So this is one of the biggest factor. If we see the headquarter of Google, headquarter of Amazon, Facebook, they are located in a country where they have to pay very little taxes. Next is financial aid. Financial aid from regional, local or national government can be a vital factor in the selection of the site. The financial aid might be direct or indirect, such as in terms of tax incentive, land subsidy or export benefit. The very recent example is USA CHIPS Act, where the US has given a lot of subsidies on be it for the capital subsidy and operation subsidy for companies to relocate, and all the companies including Intel, AMD, TSMC, everyone is starting to build their factories in US. Next, very important factor is proximity of resources. The nearer you are to your resources, the transportation cost will be less and your operations will be lean. First is raw material. For some facilities, particularly process flow plants, proximity of raw material and energy are critical factors, such as you will see the clusters of oil refineries near the oil wells. Process facilities such as coal power station are often located close to coal mines, because it is cheaper to process the coal rather than to ship the coal by rail and to a power plant some distance away. Similarly, metal processing plants such as copper, iron ore, aluminum smelters are most often located close to mine, because it is less expensive to ship the refined product rather than raw material. And a recent very good example is Tesla coming to Indonesia, where most of its raw material is located. Next, we have process and utility water. Oil refinery, metal process plant, paper companies, they use large quantity of utility water for cooling and in the process itself. Thus, these type of plant needed to be located close to reliable water supply, such as inland lakes, rivers. Then we have reliability of power supply. Reliability of power supply is very important for any continuous process industry. In some emerging economies such as Africa, electric supply is not always reliable. In this case, if a site in this area is located, backup power facilities need to be constructed close to the facility, which adds to the cost. Next, we have suppliers and subcontractors. Companies may depend heavily on suppliers and subcontractors in their operation. In the case of Toyota, we can see they try to relocate all their suppliers nearby their main production facility. So we have learned in this video how different factors affect any site selection activity. Thank you.